picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning. It's Saturday. It's sun is shining, the birds are singing, and children are playing in the street. It's a beautiful day. So let's get on to some modeling. That's exciting stuff to do this weekend. Welcome back, ladies and germs. Yes, the battery died, so I had to go recharge the battery and change my shirt and take a shower while I was at it. Three very interesting projects on the bench today, or this weekend, and I can't wait to get to them. So let's catch you up. Primarily, we have the two Colonial Ones, or the Colonial One and the Heavy Cruiser, and these will be finished this weekend. Just some fiddly bits to do about the tower and the engines, and we will be ready to decal, or gloss coat and then decal and then flat coat. So that's project number one. Project number two is coming along quite well. It is the Enterprise Transformer, and I will be going back and starting to put the paint weathering in on the various places, and maybe do the wash this weekend as well, and get it ready for decals. I might get it to the point where I'm putting the gloss coat on it as well for decals, and working on the cockpit / head a lot. And the third project is out in the other room, and I will be reporting on that shortly. From time to time, I indulge myself in what I call checkbook modeling. And that is, if I see that someone has created something that I would like to have for myself, that I either don't have the talent for or the time to do, I'll buy it. It's as simple as that. If I see something that some other maker is offering online, I'd be silly to reinvent the wheel, especially when it is something done so well as this. I have, in my last few years, I'm not dying, I have in the last few years, not my last, gotten into one-to-one life-size projects, things that are huge, because I like them. And so I have a grail list, a bucket list of lifetime objects, if you will. If anybody's interested, they include a life-size Captain Kirk chair, a life-size B9 robot, a life-size R2-D2. These are the things, if I had the time and the money and the wherewithal, these are my bucket list items. One of the other bucket list items is something that I would want to have, is a life-size 1-to-1 scale Yoda. Always liked it. And not the prequel Yoda, not the Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace puppet Yoda, which is ugly as sin. What I want is the Empire Strikes Back Yoda. And so I was trolling the RPF the other day, and was lucky enough to come across a gentleman who is making 1-to-1 scale Yodas. Now, all he had was the head, the hands, the feet, and the eyes, which frankly are the most important. Not the most important, but the most critical. If those things look good, you can kind of forgive the rest of it. But that's, so he had that done, and he had it done in a much better way than I could ever make it myself. I'm not a sculptor. I fancy myself a bit of a painter, but these were pre-painted, already cast, already done, ready to go out the door. So feeling a little bit flush lately with some nice orders that have come through, I said, what the hell? And I ordered one. I ordered the last one that he had, as a matter of fact. He's going to make some more in the near future, but these were the last ones, last one he had. And I'll just show you the quality of this. Now, you cannot beat that with a rubber hose. Of course, the eyes are missing because, let me see, yes, the eyes are missing because they're in the other room. But look at the sculpt on that. You can't beat that. It needs a little bit of hair on it, but other than that, it's done. And it's, more importantly, it's in the Empire Strikes Back Stuart Freeborn look. It is not the prequel look. It is the Empire Strikes Back look. I don't know what that is exactly, but I know it when I see it. So I pulled out the checkbook. I'm not ashamed to say it. I pulled out the checkbook and or the PayPal, and I sent him off some money. It was a bit of an adventure getting it here. It bounced around for a couple of days. I sat at home waiting for it to sign for it, and did not come. And it was a mess in the post office, but it arrived safe and sound. And at the same time, I found a very nice lady on Etsy, ETSY, on that website, by the name of Gina, who makes the rest of it, basically. She makes the cloaks and the little whistle thing and the belt and the staff and all that. She offers that as a for sale project. So, again, writing out the check, and I'm going to have that made. All it's left for me to do is to make the skeleton and the structure for everything to fit on, which is something I can do. I did that for the Kirk and Spock puppets. It's a matter of, you know, wood and angle irons and foam and stuff like that. I can do that. And that's what I'm doing this weekend, because I actually want to get the little feller already on the wood and up on his legs and arms, so that I can give Gina those measurements for the cloaks and for everything else. So that's the second project, or that's the third project I'm working on this weekend. So let me go grab the camera, take it in the other room, and show you what I'm working on with that. And here are the feet. Basically, I am doing dowel rods up the center, and that will be connected to, and say here's like the hip, and it goes to that wooden frame there, and then I'll pad it out with styrofoam. But first, what I need to do is anchor these legs, or anchor these dowel rods into the leg. And what I've done is put some extra screws in there just for some grippy bite, and I will squirt a little bit of this expanding Great Stuff foam in there in the leg to lock this in place, lock both of these dowels in place. And then what I do is I cover the outside of the dowel with foam. With this, basically this is just pipe insulation. It happens to be, I have an inch-sized hole in the center that matches the inch-sized dowels. So it goes something like that. And this will all be under robes anyway, but what it does is it just kind of fills out the structure. So let me do that. By the by, here is the base I plan on using. It was recycled from another use, but I've got the rod going up, or the pipe going up the back, and I'll attach that to the back plate, and everything kind of hangs off of that. The Yoda will not be standing under his own weight. He'll be kind of suspended off of this, and the feet will hit the ground, but they won't be supporting. They won't be. The legs won't be stiff enough to hold up the weight. That's what I'm trying to say. And there you see the foam stuck in around there. Now I'm going to give this quite a few hours to set up. I know the stuff does not instantly set, so if I don't touch it again today, that would probably be fine. But I will let it go for a few more hours and then start cutting the foam that goes around the outside of those bones, so to speak. You'll have to pardon me working on the kitchen floor right now, because that's the space that I've got. But right now, while the legs and the wrists are setting up, and you can see that foam is oozing out around the openings there, I'm working on the neck, which is very simple. This is the torso, and I've got a bit of wood there trapped, and I can't do this with one hand. Go ahead and pull this out. This is a piece of PVC in there with a stop on that way, and a bit of wood trapped between it, and that wood will act as a plug in the back of Yoda's neck, and that will give me limited opportunity to turn his wee little head. Let me put the camera down and set this up for you. That's what it looks like when it's in place from the side and everything. And once I get the eyes in and located the way I want, I can go ahead and epoxy that plug in place, but right now it's only in there by gravity. And here we go. He is the head's in place. He is the right height, 26 inches off of the base, with the feet included. I get a little bit of this kind of motion out of it. I can do a little bit of left to right. I can do a little bit of canted angles like that. And this is going to help me determine the placement of the eyes. So what I do next is pad out the belly with some foam, and that will give me the final length of the arms. I think the arms need to be a little bit longer than they are. I think they need to, Unfortunately, I can't add on to this piece of it. I can only make the forearm, not the forearm, but the upper arm. I can make that longer. But that's about the only adjustment I can make at this point. Okay, this is probably one of the most important aspects of this entire build, and that is I'm going to set the eyes in place. And now that I've kind of got the head on the body and I know about where it's going to be, I can get an idea of what orientation I want the eyes to be in. And when you first of all, I've only got one shot at getting these things in because I really don't want to get any glue or adhesive on them. So you think about what adhesive methods you have at your disposal that you can use. And I think I've opted for the best is the epoxy sculpt because it has the longest amount of time that I can work with it and get it into position, because I think I'm going to need to put one eye in and then focus it and then put the other eye in and focus it. So I need to be able to play with them for a while. If I had used regular epoxy putty, it would have set up too quick. I don't want to use anything liquid because I'm afraid it might seep out, so I've chosen the epoxy sculpt. Okay, I think those eyes are sitting just about right. That's in with epoxy sculpt, and I'll sit that overnight and leave them to dry in. If you care to look up in here, you'll see they're just impacted with epoxy sculpt all around them. But it looks good at different angles. They look like they're facing the same way. They're focused on the same item or the same object. Now there's a tricky bit in that the eyelids are differently shaped. So the eyelids are differently shaped, so I am trying to keep the eyes straight, not necessarily how they relate to the eyelids themselves. This one's open. This one's a little sleepier at the top, and this one is open a little wider. So you get one happy, and then you match the other one to it. But I think it is. I think it's a go. Well, it took a grand chunk of the day to do, but we are finally to the point where Yoda is ready for his clothes. So what I need to do now is take some measurements. Now, of course, those hands are just rubber banded together so that you can, and I can undo all of the joints that I need to undo. But this is everything on its stand, and now I can take some measurements for the clothing. But that's as much as I can do, and I'll leave this in the hands of better professionals than I. Well, hello again. It's close to 8 o'clock in the evening on Saturday, and I haven't started on Colonial One or the Enterprise yet this weekend. I spent a good chunk of the day putting that Yoda together. And then what's the last thing you want to do when you're putting your tools away is tweak your back. So my back is in a little bit of pain right now, and I just really want to sit on the chair, on the easy chair, and let some entertainment wash over me. But I'm sitting, I'm comfortable, a little bit out of breath because I'm putting the tools away, like I said. And now I'm going to finish up the Colonial Ones and the Heavy Cruiser so that I can gloss coat them tonight. I want to gloss coat them tonight so that I can put the decals on them tomorrow and I can still finish them this weekend. So that's job one now. You know, the old saying about making hay while the sun shined. Well, I can paint this at any old time of the day, but I really needed to be doing the heavy construction and ripping and sawing and sanding and cutting while it was still nice enough outside to allow me to do that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, a few scant minutes later, and all of the construction is done. I put the little greebly bits on the front and on the other side of the clean Colonial One, and I've finalized this arrangement up here, and I shortened the masts on the conning tower there, and on the other one, the shorter one is in front, And I've put that last top pedal on at the appropriate 45-degree angle so you can see that those all balance and look good. So now I am ready to, I tell you what, I'm going to do one more little pass of a stain color just on the top of that on that sail here, just in that recess, to darken that up a little bit. And then I will be ready to hit this with the gloss coat so that I can put the decals on it. Okay, I've done all the little touchy touch work, and these two are ready for decaling. I've got to let this dry and then spray the gloss coat where the decals will go. And then tomorrow morning, well, tomorrow after church, I will come back and decal them, and then let the decals dry and then flat coat. And then the last thing after the flat coat will be to go in with the chrome silver and touch, just like the aerials, the masts, and some stuff that I want to be bright silver that the flat coat has a tendency to knock down. I want them to be brilliant silver, so I paint that even after the last flat coating. Hello, it's Sunday afternoon, and last night before I stumbled off to bed like a man twice my age, holding my back in agony, I got some clear coat on the two Colonials so that I could put decals on today. Not very many decals because of all the nice painting we did, so there's not very many decals to use. So what I'm going to do is quickly put these on and give them plenty of time to dry this afternoon, and we might get the flat coat on them after a while. I don't, we'll have to see how long we need to let these decals set up. We may not get them dry coated or flat coated, at least in time for the video. I'll probably do that this evening after the video has already been put together and started to upload. So you may not see the final bit, but you'll see the decals go on, that's for sure. And then after that, the next step is to do the weathering on the Enterprime and get a lot of that taken care of, and maybe get a clear coat on that tonight. So let's get to it. Okay, we have pulled out all of the decals from this sheet that we will actually be using on these two ships. They have been reduced down significantly by the act of our painting so much that we did. And there they are. They are the two sets of names and the logos. And I will, at this time, go on one of my, I wouldn't call it a rant. I would call it a, have you ever wondered? Now, if you follow enough of my videos, you may have surmised that my day job is as a graphic artist for a government agency that I will not sully right now in case they want to disavow any knowledge of my existence. But I've often wondered, and I see movies, when I go to a movie, particularly a disaster movie or an end of the world movie or an extreme situation movie, who does the government art in that instance? I'm sure that if you're a plumber and you go see a Batman movie, you wouldn't be faulted for wondering who ran the plumbing down to the Batcave. Things like that. Particularly back in a few years ago when they had those dueling disaster movies where there were asteroids headed for Earth, and you only had a few days to a week to get a team together and train them and send them up on the asteroid. But the thing that I noticed about those movies is that all of the astronauts, and again this happened on Interstellar too, even though this is a rush job and you have no budget and it's supposed to be a secret thing, all of the astronauts had their names on their suits, and they had mission patches, and they had, all of the monitors were festooned with the names of the ships and things like that. And I always wondered who did that, because if the world is ending in 3 days, I don't know where you're going to find a government artist to come in and do that in the 3 days that you have left, that they're going to take the time to come up with a mission patch for saving the Earth. on the off chance that it will work. Of course, in all these movies it always does, but what are the chances? So here, this brings me around to this Colonial One. You have been destroyed. Your civilization, your entire way of life is gone. The Cylons have wiped you out. You're fleeing for your life or a lonely quest, a planet called Earth, and all of that. And yet somebody had the time to come up with a seal of the president. Now, I'm sure the seal of the president of the colonies already existed, but this wouldn't be that seal because this is the seal of the Galactica, or what you might assume is the seal of the Capricorns. Each of the different battle stars, I believe, had their own symbol. The flags that flew behind the dais when Adama is giving his "So Say We All" speech shows different logos of different colonies. So I'm assuming that those were the different, the Tarons, the Gemons, whatever. But the Capricorns had what is associated with the Galactica symbol. Okay, all well and good. Somehow that Galactica symbol becomes the symbol for all of humanity, and everybody unifies under this new symbol. Okay, still well and good. Some artist somewhere didn't have to work too hard to come up with a seal that incorporated that. I'm assuming whatever new quorum or whatever new government ratified it. But then somebody had to go and make the actual seal and put it on the side of the Colonial One. Because this was never designated, this was never Colonial One, this ship, before the destruction of the colonies. It was a regular old freighter. It may have been a VIP freighter, but it certainly wasn't Colonial One. It became Colonial One when Laura Roslin was the highest ranking member of the existing government to survive, and therefore the ship that she was on became Colonial One. I get that. I get that they ratified a new symbol, that they all went under the banner of the Galactica. But somebody had to create this big old sign and paint it on the side of the ship, or use a very wide format printer and print it and stick it to the side of the ship, using whatever technology they have in the colonies to make that happen. And who does that? And how do they justify the expense of that when you've got 50,000 people tops left of your society, but yet there's somebody left, food is scarce, fuel is even more so, but yet Laura Roslin is going to take money out of her budget to put logos on her ship, which are basically big old bullseyes saying to any Cylon, hey, aim for this ship. Now, knowing that there are Cylons in the fleet, and that's all, not a secret at all as to which one is the president's ship, maybe you can forgive that. But I'm wondering, I have to go back and look at the series to see exactly when this logo did pop up on the ship. And I've seen a screen capture. It is on the ship, I believe it. It does strike me as the kind of dick move that Baltar would do when he became president, that he would have the logo put on his ship. But I'm going to have to check again to see when that happened. That's just my government artist rant. And now I resume the normal operation of this video. So if you have any other opinions about this topic, just leave them in the comment section. I'd be curious to hear about what you think about that kind of stuff. Because like I said, I notice that stuff in movies, particularly in disaster movies, all the time. And I always wondered who decides that, okay, the people need to know. Now, the audience obviously needs to know that this is Colonial One. But what is the in-universe logic for it? So, now that rant's over, let's get back to putting on some decals. One good side effect of having sprayed this with a gloss, certainly you create a glossy surface for your decals to go down on so you don't trap air under them and they don't silver. But also, it traps in your weathering so that you don't, especially if you use a water-based weathering, if you are wetting the surface where the decal goes, you don't inadvertently wipe off your weathering. Just good to know. Oh, and you'll notice that the window masks still have not been removed, and that is so that I can keep those windows clear when I put the dull coat over that. Then I'll take those off, because that dull coat would frost those clear pieces of glass over. You can see that big old bubble, or not a bubble, but a bump right here where there's a piece of plating that the decal has to settle down around. That's when you pull out your good friend Solvaset and let that put a little drop of that on there, and it'll let suck in around there. Nice thing about these panel lines, you can use it like I use that panel line there to line up the words luxury liner so that I know that they are straight, because those panel lines are straight to the body, so I can line text up on that as well. Okay, here's an ugliness that I wish to warn you all against. Luckily, I'm going to use some of this other decal that I'm not... I can afford to lose it on the heavy cruiser. I can't afford to lose it here. What I'm going to do is scrape away the luxury liner wording here and put it down as a new decal. What happened is when I used the Solvaset to suck that decal up around the raised panel, it also pulled the word liner up and made it look ugly. So what I would recommend everybody else do would be to cut those words off of the decal and put those down as separate decals so that they don't so that doesn't pull up when you do it on yours. It didn't do it on the other side, and it may be I don't know why, but it didn't do it on that side. So I only have to salvage one decal out of that. And everything looks like it is very much done. I am just going to replace that last liners there where I had to scrape it off. Hopefully the flecked white paint underneath it won't show too badly. And then we'll let everything sit for a good long time where all these all dry in. And if there is time this afternoon, I will flat coat everything. The nice thing about or one of the nice things about this ship is it's skinny enough in the front that you can kind of judge your symmetry really easily. Sometimes you can't see around, or like you can judge this, whether or not those two seals are in the same position by just eyeballing them, but you can really check your symmetry to make sure everything is, lined up. Okay, that liner's word has been replaced. Not the prettiest of things, but in a perfect world I would have thought to have cut those apart before I even put them down. So you live, you learn, you go on with your life. I did not choose to light either of these kits. My hat is off to the people who do. I could see where lighting would make... I have seen finished lit models that looked excellent online, and especially the back engines. And I know Paragraphics has come out with a wonderful brass kit, as they always do. But this, their brass kit for this will allow you to light, hollow these out and light these yoke engines up, as well as the main engines in the back. And they also include window frames for people who want to bore out all of these windows. There's a wonderful set of window cutout templates on it, and my hat is off to Paul and Paragraphics for doing that. I am going to include painting masks for those Paragraphics windows along with the regular size windows for people who don't want to cut them out, just because I think enough people will want to try that it's always fun to partner up with Paul on a project like this, and this was a chance where we both could help each other out, and I think that the people who cut the windows out will be delighted by the product that's provided for that. And if I ever build another one of these, I think I will get brave and try to cut the windows out of that one, but that wasn't on the table for these builds. So as this wraps these kits up pretty much, I may come back and like I say, do the final spray today, but if not, I will show how they turned out in the next week's video. Okay, we're getting into weathering on the Enterprime, and as I've said before, I am using the current state of the kit as it exists as my painting guide, and the overly heavily weathered stuff is what is actually the look I'm shooting for. So what I'm going to do is start weathering, and I'm noticing on these lines of the nacelles, the weathering is going towards the back of the panels. So it's clean up until that line, and then it's weathered from there. Some weathering I've seen kind of splits where the weathering is over each of the panel lines, and you know, that has its uses sometimes. But what I am going for is that it is clean up until the panel line, and it is weathered to the back of it. And the same seems to be happening here on the secondary hull, where it's clean to the right of that line and weathered to the left of the panel line. So that's the scheme I'm going to be using on the nacelles and the secondary hull. If you were to translate that to the actual kit, you would be saying, okay, we are going to, each of these panel lines, we are going to be keeping this area clean, and we are going to be weathering on this side. And again, with the same with the nacelles, if you believe that this nacelle is the full length of the kit, or the full length of the nacelle, then you weather to the back of each of these lines, and you keep the clean to the front of each lines. It probably will be more apparent when we get into it. And now we have an adequately weathered secondary hull. Yes, it is severe, but so is the actual one, and the nacelles are weathered. I'm going to lighten these up a little bit with a misting coat when it's all said and done, but this may be more of a pre-shade than it is an actual weathering. But I wanted you to see what it looked like. Now I'm going to do the similar thing on the arms and the saucer, and noticing the direction of the saucer as it would be if it were complete. That is how I would weather it, not as whether or not this is complete. It's kind of tough to just explain, but the rust ring and the forward to back weathering that goes this way on the ship, not how you would weather it if it were a robot. I'm going to continue this heavy weathering that's done around here, and I'll do some slight panel indications here, and of course the weathering around the lines around the front here, these ones, and they are weathered somewhat down the center of each. They are not necessarily all to the back or all to the side. These saucer lines are more weathered more to the center of the line itself. It took a good amount of time, but I have got the shading done on the various parts of the saucer now, or what will be the upper body and arms that are made up of the saucer. And yeah, it's a little bit overdone, but this is, I mean, a little bit overdone even for the current paint job, but I think this will give the transformer a little bit more flair to have these accent lines. And as far as the concentric lines, I'm not going to try to airbrush those on. I'm going to handle those with the ComArt stain, only because I want to get in the intricate shapes of that, so I will handle that with the stain. But now that all of this has been painted, and I still have to go back and retouch everything that's red, don't worry about that. I'm just worried about the the green saucer, or the green ship color. I'm going to let this sit for a little bit, maybe make myself some dinner, and then I am going to spray that with the satin finish and get ready for the staining on it. Okay, here are the legs and the body, or the legs and the secondary hull. And it's weird, the color on the screen looks a whole lot whiter and grayer than the greenish color that I'm looking at it in real life. So the color balance does affect a lot of things. And see, that looks, see, now you start to see the green, but if I pull back it looks more grayish white, which is the whole problem we've had with the Enterprise paint job as it is. So all this stuff is I'm going to hang these feet up, and clean off the desk a little bit and clean out the airbrush and call it an afternoon as far as painting. Well, campers, it's time has come to wrap up another weekend. Boy, did we get a lot of stuff done this week. A lot of physical work. My back is paying the toll for that. Had to kind of let Yoda jump ahead of the pecking order a little bit so that I can get the robes and everything else that goes on him commissioned and get the measurements sent off, and let people that are much more talented than me at sewing tackle that problem. But we made wonderful progress on the Enterprise. We got all of that weathering done. We finished, for all intents and purposes, the 2 Colonial Ones. Couple of things about the Colonial One. I'm not really happy with the color of the lettering for Intersun and the that yellow lettering. I don't know whether it needed to have an outline around it or what exactly, but it's not showing up very well against the white hull. Don't know what that is. I can't really say. But that, and I have not put the flat coat on them because the decals are just not settling down yet. I don't want to rush that, so I'll let that set in overnight, and I will maybe dry flat coat them tomorrow night, and then I'll show you what that looks like next week. But we should be pretty far down the road on Enterprise next week. I'm looking forward to getting some of the detail and the weathering and the decals on, maybe, or get some of the other parts of it painted. But we're entering a fun time on that. Yoda is kind of out of my hands for right now. Like I say, I'm getting the cloth parts done professionally. So after that, what I think I need to do now is decide what I'm taking to Wonderfest and pull it out and touch it up and clean it up and get it ready for public inspection. And so until next week, I wish you good health. Watch out for your back. I mean, you've only got one spine. And happy modeling, and I'll see you next week.